Story 1. There is a small park nearby with a hidden bench under a large old tree. Hardly anyone visits this place. It is the perfect spot to sit, reflect, and escape the world for a while. Story 2. There is a huge cliffside on the other side of the road from me. My buddy's family owns the property, and it is where we always had parties and bonfires. People have celebrated there since the 1960s and 1970s. Story 3. There is a small, unassuming library run by an elderly couple. It is filled with books from floor to ceiling, and they know the story behind each one. It feels like walking into a sanctuary of stories, with every step revealing a new adventure. It surpasses any amusement park I know. Story 4. There is a shared swimming pool that is perfectly maintained, and the weather here is ideal for swimming most of the year. I wonder why I don't swim more often. Story 5. When I was a child, I grew up within walking distance of a 1,000-year-old Cistercian monastery located in a valley a couple of miles from our house. I was telling someone about it the other day and realized for the first time how much we took that for granted as children. These days, it is probably the world's only swinging aqueduct. It is a Victorian river canal built over another shipping canal, and the entire aqueduct swings out of the way when large ships pass through. It is impressive to think that when it was built 130 years ago, it was powered entirely by steam. Some proper steampunk elements right there. Story 6. A small concert venue, a soccer stadium, and an oversized sculpture of a metal bird. Story 7. The ocean is about a 60-second walk from my porch. I like to call it the poor man's waterfront because it is very affordable for being near the water. Although it may not be healthy enough for swimming, you can comb the beach for hours searching for sea glass and seashells. There is also a large playground, fishing pier, and boat dock here. I grew up in Texas but now live in Rhode Island, and I truly love it. Story 8. A creek is just a minute's walk away. I love birds, so it's always pleasant to see all the birds, including geese. Story 9. I can see the giant sports complex where the Dallas Cowboys and Texas Rangers play from my backyard. Practically looms over our house. There are hotels, and it lights up at night like something out of a cyberpunk movie. I don't care about sports too much, but it's nice to get free fireworks shows from our back patio. Story 10. Korean barbecue, deli, delicious donuts, ice cream parlor, breweries, many bars, the best po' in the city, and parks. There is much to choose from. Story 11. An enormous horse chestnut tree, which I am certain is at least a couple of 100 years old, is about to burst forth with white flower candles. It is stunning. Story 12. I can stand in my backyard and hear wolves howling and lions roaring at Longleat Safari Park just over the way. Story 13. There is a Marathon gas station that is one of the best bottle shops in the city. They also have 20 beer taps and some good bourbon available. Story 14. Probably the old school barber shop. I got my first haircut at about 3 years old and another one at 55 by the same person. Story 15. A very old tree that appears to know everyone's secrets. It seems to understand everything. Story 16. There was a time when it was a ski lift up a mountain. Now it's probably just a park. I miss living at the ski resort. Story 17. Greenbelt walking trails encircle the city's lakes and river. There is a city park featuring lake docks, tennis and pickleball courts, as well as a city pool. Alternatively, I can walk to our city square. Story 18. Nothing special, but I like that we live next to a bike trail that connects to a city and county-wide bike trail system. It's convenient, and we don't have to worry about riding on city streets. Story 19. A 495-acre park with a small zoo featuring 3 mountain lions, 2 bobcats, 2 black bears, various reptile species, 1 bald eagle, 2 California condors, and 3 coyotes. The park has 2 lakes with paddle boats, a small-scale railroad, bicycles, and 4-person pedal bikes. Additionally, there is a nature center, horses, and old-growth trees. It is a stunning place. Story 20. A family of peacocks lives in the large tree a couple of streets away. They roam around freely. Story 21. Walking distance is relative, I suppose. 1 mile, There is a weekly farmer's market with great produce and about a dozen food trucks. 2 miles, there is one of the best donut shops in my neighborhood. 3 miles, you will find the historical Old Town District, featuring original buildings from the early 1800s. 4 miles, there is a marine sanctuary and amusement park. 5 miles, an entire city block is dedicated to Asian culture, including shops, restaurants, and more. Story 22. A Canadian Shield Lake is full of bass and lake trout. Sometimes I walk, but mostly I drive and launch my boat. Story 23. The Detroit River has a beautiful park in town that is just a 5-minute walk from my house. I enjoy watching all the lake freighters pass by while I am on the Canadian side. Story 24. I am renting a place that has a pond on the property. It is enjoyable to sit on the dock and feed the ducks, geese, fish, and turtles. Recently, a heron has been hanging around as well. It is nice to be surrounded by wildlife. Story 25. There is a canyon about a mile down the road from my house where people can hike, bike, or rock climb. It was a quarry in the early 1900s, so you can see where the rocks were extracted and transported up the road to where an old roundhouse now stands. It was also once a dump that has since been overgrown, and you would never know unless someone told you. There is a trail where you can see fossils in the rocks, and a pond that Canadian geese like to wade in, which apparently now has goldfish in it. There are many trails that take you further in, and there is even a waterfall at the end of one. It is a great place to get lost for a few hours if needed. Story 26. Just outside our back gate is an old railway berm, a hill that rises 20 feet to a footpath. From here, we can see snowmobiles, dirt bikes, bicycles, walkers, runners, dogs, rabbits, coyotes, and moose passing by. Story 27. There is a small ice cream shop that creates the most unusual flavors imaginable. Last week, I tried their garlic bread ice cream, and honestly, it was surprisingly good. My friends think I am crazy, but their experimental flavors never disappoint. Story 28. The spot where Abraham Lincoln looked out on the valley floor below, where he decided to start the Transcontinental Railroad. Story 29. Baseball fields, softball fields, swimming pools, a scanning electron microscope, a burger stand, and a taco truck. I enjoy getting a burrito and watching the games. Story 30. The Point Pleasant Canal is a 3-mile, 200-foot wide canal that connects Barnegat Bay to the Manasquan River at the Jersey Shore. Boats in northern Barnegat Bay pass through to reach the Atlantic Ocean. This canal makes the barrier island an island. It gets very busy on weekends during the season. Story 31. The historic center of a medium-sized city in Western Europe features a few eagle nests. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site known worldwide, with mighty rivers, dikes, and polders. Story 32. A brewery and pub are a block away. The Chesapeake Bay is within walking distance, but I have yet to take that walk. Story 33. A creek runs through the back of my yard. I enjoy turning over rocks to find little critters and watching the birds and wildlife that visit the creek. My dogs love splashing around in it. There is also a beautiful cemetery that is quiet and peaceful. I like to walk my dogs there in the evenings. Story 34. The courthouse built in the 1800s in Gold Country, Northern California, is illuminated at night, and I can see it from my porch and living room. Story 35. A peaceful rainforest and the ocean surround my neighborhood. Fortunately, nature is about 15 minutes to the east and west of my house. I used to live in a big city, but as I grew older, I began to appreciate nature more. Story 36. There is a paved path that runs along the river for the entire length of my town. Among other attractions, there is a brewery with a beer garden on the path, about a 15-minute walk from my home. Story 37. John Muir National Historic Site features the home where he lived, and the surrounding hills are all protected. Story 38. Llama Farm. It's right next to a natural mica mine and a colorful hut that I call Chicken Church. A small congregation meets there twice a week, and there's a big chicken statue nearby. Story 39. What distance are we discussing? Technically, Alaska is within walking distance, but it will take me months to get there. Story 40. A river with a blue heron nest, otters, turtles, ducks, geese, deer, and several other types of wildlife are viewable from my patio on the riverbank or my front porch. Story 41. Up the dead-end street across from my house. There is a large house with a spacious lot and a man-made pond. The owner dug the pond and keeps trout in it. There is a boulder at one end, and next to it is a container of fish food. A note advises against overfeeding the fish but encourages visitors to feed them. A state trail cuts across his property, so he expects people to pass by on their way to and from the woods. He also maintains the trail all the way to the end of his property line. The best part is my neighbor, who always has cookies for my dog. Story 42. A bowling alley once owned by Bill Mosienko, the player with the fastest hat trick in National Hockey League history. Story 43. My car isn't that cool, but considering I live in the middle of nowhere, nothing is really within walking distance. Story 44. A windmill. At a certain point on the walk to the train station, as you crest a hill, an object appears on the distant horizon. We should go and see what it is, we said for months after moving here. One day we set off, and my partner didn't believe we were walking to a windmill until we rounded the corner of a perfectly ordinary South London crescent. And there it was, a windmill from the 1850s. Certainly not Brixton. Story 45. There is a large area of forest behind our home with old walking trails that would take days to explore completely. We enjoy it, and our dog absolutely loves it. Story 46. A boulder the size of a small car, grooved from being pushed by a glacier, is in our backyard. Story 47. There are ancient Roman aqueducts located behind my house. Since they are in an area where one wouldn't typically walk, I only see them when passing by on the bus or in a car. They are very close to my house, and I would like to stop and take a long look at them sometime in my life. Story 48. I once lived near an airstrip, a rock climbing cliff, and a beautiful beach scattered with sea glass, all within walking distance. I missed that place. Story 49. How far is walking distance? If I walked for 2 hours, I would reach Morgan Freeman's house, or if I drove for 10 minutes. Story 50. If you're interested in Iron and Viking Age history, there are about 20 rune stones in the center of town, another 40 further out, and over 1,000 more in the rest of the county. There are also Iron and Viking Age burial mounds just outside of town, along with a place that serves mead next door. Story 51. Probably the large park. We go sledding during every snowfall, get ice cream at the playground from the vendors, ride bikes, fly kites, and there is an area designed for kids to build unique structures using long branches from trees, with a giant wooden robot guarding it. Although people have expressed concern about coyotes following them, I believe it is worth it to see deer occasionally. Story 52. The little concert venue in my town is available. In the summer, I can open the windows and hear the music loud enough to decide whether to head over or not. Story 53. A patch of cherry blossom trees. I can't remember why Japan sent them to our area long ago, but they actually just bloomed yesterday. Story 54. I live in a very small community that dried up and blew away after World War II. They shut down the post office in 1959 when my grandmother, the postmaster, died. Before that, a mail train tossed out a bag of mail for the locals every day. When the railroad passed through here in the 19th century, they built 2 sidings along with the main line. One was for the grain elevator, which is still there but not functional, and the stockyard, of which only the foundations remain. Another siding was for the railroad pond, as it was called. The railroad constructed a dam and concrete spillway when they built the lines and established the train station, which is also gone. Fast forward about 150 years, and the pond, originally a 4-acre lake, has completely silted in and is now overgrown with woods, with a creek running through it. However, the large concrete spillway and 6-foot diameter tunnel under the tracks still exist. The creek flows water mostly year-round and cascades down the concrete steps, each about 3 feet by 3 feet, to the bottom and through the tunnel. The concrete hole next to the tracks is around 30 feet deep and approximately 40 to 50 feet across. It's a fascinating and unexpected find if you don't know it's there. After a heavy rain, when the creek is running bank full, It becomes a spectacular waterfall about 300 yards from my house. Story 55. We have a nice park alongside a river, a 10-minute walk from my house. It features a great playground, 2 baseball diamonds, several tennis courts, and a community stage where they show a few movies on Wednesday evenings during the summer. At the end of my street, there is also a nice library and community center. Story 56. We have a Bombshells restaurant 4 blocks away. The place is not great, but it's nice to have a spot to go to when you want to watch sports without spending a lot of money. Story 57. Up until a month ago, it was the local comic shop run by the most relaxed individuals. I went in looking for a few issues and walked out with 15 I didn't know I needed. They were also very approachable, and I enjoyed sharing my hot comic book opinions to spark a debate. I went back the next week just as the locksmith was installing new locks, and no one could get in. Story 58. Depends on what you think is interesting. I have some great neighbors, and there is a lot of impressive stuff and people around here, to be honest. Story 59. There is a 19th century mass grave about a 15-minute walk from my home, marked by 2 old crosses in the middle of a forest. Story 60. My parents' house backs up to a state park. We could hike not far to a nice swimming hole. It was on the less traveled trail, so when we were in high school, it was almost always empty. The water stayed cool even late into summer. At its deepest, it was about 12 feet deep with large rocks to sit on. These days, there are many more people living in the area, and there are usually a few groups of people there on any nice day. It is not quite the exclusive forest swimming pool we enjoyed when we were younger. Story 61. City Cemetery has graves that predate the Civil War. It is quiet and peaceful, with plenty of streets for safe walking and good-sized hills. Story 62. A small gazebo I discovered on December 11th years ago was covered in holly and ivy, putting me in a great holiday mood when I first found it. Story 63. A pond that often has alligators and impressive birds like ospreys, great blue herons, great egrets, glossy ibises, and white ibises. Story 64. It is a toss-up between my garage with my bike and my car, and the small dog of a neighbor that doesn't listen at all. It is always fun to see her running after Panko. Everything else is just mediocre. Story 65. The D&L Trail runs from Mountaintop, Pennsylvania, to Bristol. You can hike, bike, or horseback ride on it. It goes through several state parks and runs along the Lehigh and Delaware rivers, providing opportunities for fishing as well. I am a bit biased since I was a whitewater river guide on the Lehigh for almost 20 years. Story 66. There is a horse stable and riding school across the street from my house. They put neon leg warmers on all the horses every morning and heavy coats when it's cold. It's the most adorable thing I have seen in my life. Story 67. The remnants of a once great tower, farm, and magnificent structures in France. It is in the woods, and the story is that the family who owned it was in a feud with the family who owns the castle in town. The castle family offered to buy the farm, buildings, and tower and restore it, but the Tower family would rather see it crumble than ever be in the hands of the Castle family. It is falling apart. Ivy covers nearly all of the tower now, and if you do not know it is there, you are unlikely to see it. Additionally, it is surrounded by agricultural fields, so it is off the trails but near my house. I often ride my horse by it or walk the dogs there. I feel like I live in Ithilien. Story 68. Goats. Neighbors up the street have them, and we like to treat them to a little lettuce now and then when we take our walks. They are precious. Story 69. Zach's Hamburgers on McDade Boulevard in Ridley Township, Pennsylvania, is known as the heart of Delaware County. It serves the best burgers and shakes around. Story 70. Have you ever been to Suffolk, Virginia? There is nothing much to see. Maybe a brewery or two, but really there's nothing. Story 71. There are many fields around my town, primarily playing fields, along with a large area of farm fields in 2 directions. The fields are all open and have benches. There is a small nook by the river in one of them, and overall it is quite nice in those areas. However, since it is the UK, it is also windy and rainy for most of the year. Story 72. I have nothing but downtown movie theaters, restaurants, and bars. I would love a good park with a swing set. Story 73. There is a beautiful neighborhood I walk in daily, and the smell of the flowers after a spring rain brings a little happiness to you. Story 74. There is a park near my home where I have seen woodpeckers, owls, bats, a skunk, a baby raccoon, an otter, deer, and other wildlife. Story 75. A lake is right outside. I am moving soon, so I am going to miss morning coffee on the porch, watching the birds wake up. Story 76. A nature reserve with a train tunnel underneath it features fantastic graffiti and spray paint art. I need to visit over the weekend. It has been a while. Story 77. I take a short walk every morning and stand here. Story 78. I used to live within walking distance of a lighthouse, a beach with sharp rocky formations, a World War I airfield that served as a training ground during World War II, and a museum showcasing various aircraft. The area is surrounded by several air raid shelters and pillboxes. We also occasionally see dolphins and seals along the coast. Additionally, there is one of the oldest golf courses in the world nearby, ranking among the top 5 oldest. Story 79. There is a trail in the woods of my neighborhood with an abandoned Boy Scout camp and a cool bridge. It had a zip line at one point, but I believe it is no longer there. Story 80. A few small parks with trees, a small library, a stadium, small markets and bakeries are present, and many houses have beautiful gardens. Story 81. My greenhouse is warm enough in the winter for my large pet bunnies to live in it. In the summer, I have 15 tomato plants. Story 82. A large horse farm that was an essential part of the Underground Railroad served as a safe haven for enslaved people. Until recently, it hosted steeplechase horse races, serving as the starting point for these events across the country. It was a very popular and well-established event. People from all walks of life attended, holding tailgate parties ranging from simple blankets on the ground to luxury cars with elaborate displays of gourmet food under silver chafing dishes. It remains a working horse farm with a historic farmhouse nestled among rolling hills, pastures, and vast green acres. I admire it as I pass by every day. Story 83. There is a beaver lodge 10 minutes from my location. I can sit and watch those little animals build in peace and quiet. Story 84. Nature, I live in the woods and there are trees, owls, bobcats, deer, fields, a river, and many birds like ducks, herons, and ospreys, as well as numerous frogs and other aspects of rural life that make me happy. Story 85. There is a beach about half a mile from my house with a playground where my son loves to play. We go there frequently in the summer. My wife reads a book while my son plays, and I fish for a bit. It is one of my favorite parts of our neighborhood. Story 86. Absolutely nothing. However, I grew up in a town where everything was within walking distance. Peace and quiet come at a price. Story 87. Perspective, I guess. I have lived most of my life in a remote area of the Midwest United States. Everything is so flat. From a grain silo, I can see 2 states over. I have to drive half an hour to the nearest Walmart. Had it not been for school and then work, I would have left long ago. I had a cousin visit me from Seoul, South Korea. He found where I lived absolutely breathtaking. He told me that you can see fireflies everywhere at night. Wild animals walk among us. The woods are tall and dense. The fields are magnificent. And every night the Milky Way is visible. He said it was also the first time he saw the sun set over the horizon every single evening. I suppose it took his perspective to see the beauty I was immersed in. I mean, it's still a remote area, but everything within walking distance is also quite beautiful. Story 88. There is a skate park and dog park, a Mexican restaurant, an Italian restaurant, a Mexican grocery store with a butcher, a package store, and numerous fast food options, including chicken, Chinese food, and 3 hamburger places, one of which is Whataburger. Story 89. There is a statue of a mermaid about 5 minutes on foot from my parents' house. It is part of local folklore, a legend about a mermaid who caused a flood in revenge. The story goes that fishermen caught a mermaid and, instead of letting her go, kept her restrained on their ship, abusing her. When the mermaid escaped, she summoned the sea to take revenge, tearing down the dike, flooding the area, and destroying houses. The story aligns with a flood that actually occurred, so I think that's pretty interesting. Story 90. Well, if I have enough time and money, I would explore the entirety of the Americas, although I may need some ferry access for certain areas. Story 91. A 100% cursed curio antique secondhand shop. The second you set foot in there, you get a feeling of just unease, like being coated in dry slime or some kind of sticky residue that feels like it will never wash off, and it's not just the dust. The owner isn't helping matters. The moment you show your face, he just stalks you around, staring at you as if you're invading his sacred sanctuary. He's happy to sell you the things he has on the sidewalk or retrieve something you point at through the window. But if you enter his palace of piles, you are an enemy. I bought a chair from him once, from inside the shop, brought it home, sat in it after a thorough cleaning, then threw it out the next day because my whole being was crawling with wrongness. I bought a table from his stand outside the shop with no issues. Also, the shop has been there for at least 40 years. It has had the same owner all that time, and I swear he hasn't aged a day. Either he's been 80 for 40 years, or he looked 80 when he was 40, or he doesn't age at all. Given the fact that the shop is cursed, I know what I'm betting on. Story 92. I live on the site of one of William Wallace's battles in 1297, where his 300 horsemen routed a company of 1,000 English under Earl Percy, just a couple of months before he won the Battle of Stirling Bridge. There is also a church from the 1100s and a house built in 1497 that is open to the public and has the original hearth fireplaces. I love it here. Story 93. I live very close to one of the old Roman north-south routes in the UK. Part of it is a modern road and part is a footpath. If I walk a block from my front door, I'm on it. If I follow it for a couple of miles and then cut across a farm track, I can find the intact remains of one of the towers from a Knights Templar monastery, which is open for free visits. Story 94. A memorial plaque to Elvis Presley. In 1977, while on the way from the airport to the concert venue, Elvis stopped and broke up a fight at a gas station. The gas station is no longer there and is now the site of a used car dealership. Story 95. Napoleon Street on the hillside in the east and Iron Street on the hillside in the west meet somewhere in the north. Napoleon Street is named after Napoleon because he traveled that route on his way to Russia. Iron Street is named after the purpose of the original trail, which can still be found beneath today's road. Today's roads are built upon this and still follow the original trails that date back to around 500 BC or earlier. It was used to transport or from the mines east of my home village to the Rhine River in the west. Along Iron Street in the west, you will find a treetop path and a large wooden tower that overlooks the entire region. If you continue farther west, it is better to use a bike, as the distance is long if you walk. You will reach Gallows Hill, the highest point in the region. When executions occurred here, there was a beautiful view over a large area. The valley of the Sieg River in the south and the Brohl Creek Valley in the north. Story 96. Chugach State Park covers 495,000 acres of wilderness, home to black bears, brown bears, moose, Dall sheep, mountain goats, wolves, lynx, coyotes, wolverines, and more. Story 97. 4,000-year-old stone circles, similar to mini Stonehenge. Story 98. There is a hollow tree at an old Quaker mansion that was part of the Underground Railroad. It is about half a mile from the house in the woods. When slave catchers were known to be in the area, fugitive slaves would be sent out from the house to spend the night inside the tree. It was still there about 7 to 8 years ago, with room for 5 to 8 people inside. I am not sure if it is still there, though. It is an old tulip poplar and is susceptible to winter blowdowns. Story 99. A family-owned Polita shop. The fruit bowls upset my stomach, but I have a mile to walk it off before I need to run to the bathroom. Story 100. The spring is the source of the river that flows through the town. It is a wonderful fishing spot, and there is a boardwalk over the spring lake. Story 101. I live near a cul-de-sac that borders the river running through our city. It is private property technically, but as long as you do not disturb it, they leave you alone. It is a nice place to sit and enjoy some serenity. Story 102. In Toronto, Lake Ontario and High Park offer great opportunities for relaxation and enjoyment. Riding or walking along the boardwalk at the West End beaches, such as Sunnyside, is an excellent way to spend the day. During the winter months, you can also enjoy tobogganing in High Park. Story 103. I live less than a mile from the world's favorite pinball arcade. That place is disorienting, to say the least. Story 104. During lambing season, a couple of miles away, there is a lane that borders a farm. Last year, I cycled through and saw more than 50 adorable little lambs roaming around. Story 105. An independently owned art gallery features the works of a 93-year-old man who immigrated from Africa as a child. I love it, but sadly, he is experiencing noticeable and rapid cognitive decline, so I don't believe the gallery will be around for much longer. Story 106. A castle on its own island with an 11th century tower. Story 107. It depends on how far you walk. It takes 15 minutes to reach parks, thrift shops, the theater, the library, and takeout restaurants. It is a 1.5-hour walk to the beach in one direction and to the city in the other. It takes half an hour to get to the airport or 45 minutes to the river. Story 108. There are numerous restaurants, wine bars, Irish pubs, shops, art galleries, parks, coffee shops, bookstores, and a library that will reopen soon. I believe I can walk to anything I might need, including a couple of hospitals. Although the beach is a bit far to walk to, I can reach a bus that takes me there. I love this city. Story 109. The woods near my house are filled with delicious mushrooms seasonally. There are poisonous ones as well, but I know how to identify them. Story 110. A Norman church stands on the site of the oldest known educational establishment in the country. My children love the early 8th century Celtic crosses. Story 111. The forest comes right up to my backyard. We have driven off the coyotes and bears, so the deer and moose have a safe haven for raising their young. I have literally chased off a couple of coyotes when a second yearling moose came bolting out of the woods. It saw me, immediately relaxed, and calmly walked back in. Story 112. The desert. I have a nice area of public land a few blocks away where we can hike freely with the dogs. Story 113. A wildlife reserve. This evening, I saw 4 deer, 2 foxes, and spent some time watching the ducks with their ducklings. Story 114. Twice a year, there is a town fair right behind my house in the city municipal fields. One of the events is a beer and wine festival. Parking costs $20 for the event, if you can find parking. However, parking is free at my place and I have a gate key. I enjoy drinks and food for free and walk home afterwards. Story 115. In one direction, there's a nice little park with basketball courts. In the other direction, about the same distance away, there's a bar that is in poor condition. Story 116. Like 5 different supermarkets, a boxing gym, a Pilates and yoga studio, a dance studio, a public gym, a dog park, and a hospital. Basically, everything I can think of that I need every day. Story 117. Most of the street corners near me have captured enemy cannons from around the world over a period of about 500 years. Story 118. The boardwalk. There is something magical about smelling the ocean and hearing the waves rock back and forth. Story 119. There is a brewery down the hill from our neighborhood. There is a secret shortcut through the woods that not many people know about. It makes me happy to take this route to the brewery with my husband. Story 120. The abandoned jail is interesting. Wear good boots. There is standing water in the low areas, and you may never get that smell out of your shoes. Story 121. I have the foundation of the last general store where Black people and Indigenous people could shop in my town. Across the alley is the remains of the last blacksmith. Story 122. A path off the side of the road leads to a scenic hike up to a beautiful ledge that overlooks the mountains and lake. It is stunning. Along the way, there are 3 streams to hop across, which adds to the fun. I am so glad I found it. Story 123. The soundproofed and sound-treated rehearsal room in my garage allows me to play as loud as I want in the middle of the night without disturbing anyone. Story 124. I could see the New York Mets training facility from my bedroom window. I saw some of the greatest players ever there. Story 125. Slightly longer walk to a 900-year-old ruin of an abbey destroyed under the rule of Henry VIII. A nature reserve. A 200-year-old haunted manor house. Story 126. The town I live near is a 5-minute walk. If I want Italian food, I can be there in 6 minutes. If I want German cuisine, I can be there in 5 minutes. If I need a court document signed, I can be there in 4 minutes. If I want to look at some retro items from my childhood, I can be there in 8 minutes. If I need something from the store, I can be there in 5 minutes. I don't like being in a busy area, but I appreciate how walkable everything is. Story 127. A huge park with a creek running through it. There are plenty of trees and bridges. It is wonderfully quiet, apart from the birds and ducks, even though parts of it are near main roads and housing. Story 128. The paved walking trail allows me to leave my backyard and access a walking trail through the woods that extends for about 10 miles in a loop. It's like living in a state park. I am an American, and this is how we live. Story 129. There is an old bar in my neighborhood that has been around for many years. After a long time of struggling, I am finally building a community there, and it has been very beneficial for me. Story 130. There's a park next to my place overlooking a major highway and a gas station. At night, if you stay near the bridge inside the park, you will see all sorts of crazy things. Robberies, gunshots, police chases, and more. Who needs television when you have all this drama live? Story 131. My tomato garden. I check it every day now since I believe I made hybrids. They are only seedlings for now, only time will tell. Story 132. I live less than 4 blocks from the bank of the mighty Columbia River in Vancouver, Washington, in the Pacific Northwest, United States. Story 133. I live in the Blue Mountains, Australia, and can easily walk to the iconic tourist destination of Echo Point to see the Three Sisters. The views over the mountains and down into the valleys are amazing. The best time is early in the morning when you can watch the fog rise from the valley and disappear. Story 134. I can walk about 45 seconds to my dock, get in my kayak, and enjoy the small lake. I'm often the only one on it, especially this early, but even on summer weekdays it is very quiet here. It's not a big lake. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.